A group of high-profile Bitcoiners are in Oslo this week, educating the Norwegian parliament and top government officials about the global human rights and humanitarian impact of Bitcoin. Joining us now to discuss is one of those Bitcoiners, Farida Bemba Nabourema, social activist from Togo. Hi, Farida. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. All right. So, at the same time, the World Economic Forum is happening, but, you guys are having an event in Oslo, Norway, and you're teaching government officials about Bitcoin. So I'm wondering what's happening in Oslo and what has the reception been?
We were invited to Oslo, first of all, by the Human Rights Foundation, which is an organization that has been working to promote democracy and freedom across the world, supporting movements and organizations that are fighting against authoritarian government and promoting rule of law and democracy. And in that context, we, as part of the Bitcoin community that are also in the Human Rights Foundation community, were invited to speak at the with members of parliament in Norway to discuss the humanitarian aspect of Bitcoin, because usually we only talk about the speculative aspect of it, of people trying to get richer and investing and holding until they can get more money. But for a huge amount of people in the world, actually the majority of the populations outside of the Western world, Bitcoin for them is just beyond a method of speculation. It is a way for them to counter government surveillance. It is a way for them to raise money and to support activist organizations that are fighting for democracy. It is a way for them to provide assistance to people who are in dire need of humanitarian aid. So we want there to kind of like present those aspects of Bitcoin that are not often mainstream in mainstream media, and to present a case for the need for the Norwegian parliament and the government of Norway to consider using Bitcoin in the future to deploy humanitarian support to countries in need. And by doing that, they will eliminate middlemen and middle institutions that actually end up siphoning the majority of these funds.
Fascinating. So as a citizen of Togo, can you describe to us how Bitcoin has helped you and other Togans?
Well, Togo is considered, unfortunately, as one of the poorest countries in the world. The country has been ruled by the same family since 1967. It is ruled by the oldest military authoritarian government in Africa, the Nyasimbe family. We live in a country where the government has full control of the monetary system, a country where the government can easily seize the assets and close the bank account of people that they deem suspicious or people that have openly just the way that they are ruling the country and demanding accountability. So in that context of severe economic repression from an authoritarian regime that doesn't hesitate to jail protesters, to arrest activists, to kill journalists, finding an alternative way to utilize our funds, to raise our funds, to fund our activism was paramount and important. This is what eventually led me to looking into Bitcoin and trying to pay attention to how we could actually take advantage of this global monetary system to support our revolution and our struggle for democracy and human rights in Togo. And in the process, by doing that initially, it was just for convenience reason, but then eventually we realized that it is also a way for financial freedom for people like myself, coming from a country where we are using a currency that was created during the colonial era, which makes the government of France, which used to be the colonial power of Togo, hold about 80% of our gold reserve. With that, we've asked the people of Togo having no say whatsoever about our monetary policy, because decision-making is done outside of Togo and imposed on the people of Togo. So Bitcoin presented us with a financial system that is completely decentralized, in which we have an equal share of an equal fair share of making the system work, of sustaining it, of improving it, and benefiting from it.
Mm-hmm. So I wonder, in terms of mass adoption, do you think it should come from the people, from the bottom up, or from the top down, such as governments? Because we do hear from, El Salvador, and more recently the Central African Republic making Bitcoin legal tender. But do you think, what's the best way to get it done?
I believe the best way to get it done is to go from the bottom up, because going to the top to the bottom I believe, really kind of like kills the real purpose of the Bitcoin, which is to literally remove middle institutions and make Bitcoin accessible to citizens equally across the world. And unfortunately, in certain countries like El Salvador, while I applaud the decision to consider to use the Bitcoin as a legal tender, I also don't want this to kind of like make people close an eye on the ongoing human rights abuses, the persecution of journalists, the refusal of the Salvadorian government to kind of like allow the press to do its job and report genuinely on how the people of Salvador are feeling about Bitcoin. The people of Salvador need to adopt Bitcoin because it works for them. They shouldn't be using it because it is imposed on them or it is being used by a publicity stunt to allow a government achieve a populist agenda. So there are some countries that have elected their governments freely, and there are some countries that are democratic, in which institutions are strong. In those situations where you have free and fair elections and you have strong institutions, a top to the bottom approach wouldn't be hurtful. But in countries where you have complete authoritarianism, like the case of Togo, moving to a point where the government will impose a currency on citizens is actually going to make the citizens reject the currency. Why? Because authoritarian governments have a situation where their authoritarianism has completely eroded the trust between them and the people. So when you don't trust your government, there is no way you will want to trust them with your money, and you wouldn't trust any monetary system that they're going to propose to you. So this is why I believe that Bitcoin should be done through education, mass education, for a totally genuine, natural adoption from the masses and to the top.
Well, for instance, I want to bring up Central African Republic as an example. So they recently made Bitcoin legal tender. They want to create an economic zone for crypto called Sango. They'll create a legal framework, a digital wallet, a metaverse there. And we have a quick tweet that we'll bring up. So Joseph Cotterill, who's a correspondent from the Financial Times, has saying the Central African Republic under Touadéra, the president there, is a war economy, a Wagner Group client, and a breeding ground for transnational organized crime, according to a 2020 Century report. And now it is launching a crypto island. I think there might be a story there. And I suppose where he's going with that is there's a bit of I guess, questions or, skepticism around this move and how will it actually impact and benefit ordinary people in Africa?
I think that there is a danger to single-sided stories, and this tweet is overly simplistic because it just portrays a war-torn country that is inviting in Russian mercenaries to support them and portraying as a result the government as not being a good one. But you have to look at the history of CAR. CAR is a country that was colonized by France for over 50 years, and upon which the French government imposed a dictator that decided to appoint himself an emperor. And the president of France then attended the coronation of the so-called emperor who eventually led this country to ruin. And this country, which was initially extremely wealthy with diamonds and many other natural resources, has been controlled for many decades by the French military that has orchestrated massive human rights atrocities, including raping children as little as 4 years old. There are documented data provided by the United Nations investigation that pinpoint how the French government and the French military have failed the people of CAR, who for the past decades have known nothing but violence and war. So the choice of the new government to find partners that can help them secure their country and find an alternative to peace shouldn't be automatically demonized and shown as a pro-Russian country. It is a country that is trying to surviving. And the government of CAR didn't have an option because they were banned from purchasing weapons. And without weapons, they couldn't find the terrorist groups, the military groups that had been committed grave war crimes, genocide, and human rights atrocities. I think we need to look at things in a more objective way. The president of CAR is currently one of the most educated presidents, not in Africa, but in the world. This is a president that has 2 PhDs in mathematics. So you can just belittle his critical thinking and his love for his country to the fact that he has a few Russian mercenaries helping him safeguard his country and restore peace for a country that has not violence for many decades. So I disagree with the fact that we just oppose statements in such a way. We are looking at the root causes of the deterioration of CAR's economy in the first place. So I don't have any skepticism coming from that aspect. My skepticism will rather come from whether the people of CAR are ready to use a cryptocurrency as a legal tender, and how can we support them to get ready for that, and what is it in it for the youth of CAR that are deprived of jobs, because this is a country that has more than 80% of its young people unemployed. How can they benefit from taking part in this monetary and digital revolution by creating jobs in Web3, in the crypto sector, and in the blockchain sector? And how do we improve energy in CAR that is naturally blessed, in which we can install solar panels, thermal energy, wind energy to strengthen the production and the mining of Bitcoin in that country. So I want to look at the future with a lot of optimism, and I don't want to be part of those people who automatically, just because the country is poor and has known war, its decisions are demonized, undermined, and the ability of its leaders to think automatically misjudged and completely ridiculed. I disagree with this, and I think we are not giving enough credit for this country that has known nothing but colonialism, neocolonialism, and war.